Driverly.com, unlimited drama series.
The kitchen clock ticked past midnight when I heard Vanessa's BMW crunch up our gravel driveway. I sat at the old oak table my mother had left me, nursing a beer and pretending to read yesterday's newspaper. The sound of her heels clicking across the porch made my jaw clench. She burst through the door like a tornado in designer clothes, clutching a manila envelope against her chest. Her perfectly styled blonde hair was slightly mussed, and her lipstick was smudged. I didn't need a detective's badge to figure out where she'd been. "Jack, we need to talk." Her voice carried that fake sweetness she used when she wanted something. I looked up from the sports section, keeping my expression neutral. "It's after midnight, Vanessa. Can't it wait?" "No, it can't." She slammed the envelope down on the table, making my beer bottle jump. "I want a divorce." I'd been expecting this conversation for months, but hearing the words still felt like a punch to the gut. I took a slow sip of beer, buying myself time to think. Okay, I figured this was coming. Her perfectly manicured eyebrows shot up. She'd expected tears, begging, maybe even anger. My calm response clearly threw her off script. "That's it? That's all you have to say?" I shrugged. "What do you want me to say, Vanessa? That I'm shocked? We've been living like roommates for 2 years. Bad roommates." She opened the envelope and pulled out a thick stack of legal papers. "I've already filed. My lawyer says this will be quick and clean if you cooperate." "Cooperate how?" "Sign over your half of the house. I know it was your mother's place, but we've been married 8 years. I'm entitled to half of everything." She pushed the papers toward me. "Do this, and I'll let you see Emma and Tyler on weekends." My blood turned to ice. Emma was 7, Tyler was 5. They were the only good things to come out of this marriage, and she was using them as leverage. "Let me see them? They're my kids too, Vanessa." "Are they?" She smiled, and there was something cruel in it. "You sure about that, Jack?" The words hit me like a sledgehammer. I stared at her, searching her face for any sign she was bluffing, but Vanessa had always been a terrible liar, and right now, she looked absolutely confident. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you'd better sign those papers if you want to keep pretending you're their father." She stood up, smoothing down her skirt. "I'm staying at my sister's tonight. I want your answer by tomorrow evening." She walked toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and Jack? If you try to fight me on this, I'll make sure the whole town knows what a pathetic loser you really are. I'll tell everyone how you couldn't satisfy your wife, how you drove me into another man's arms." The door slammed behind her, leaving me alone with the papers and the sound of my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. I picked up the divorce petition, scanning the legal jargon until I found what I was looking for. She was demanding the house, half my savings, and primary custody of the children. In return, I'd get supervised visitation every other weekend and the privilege of paying child support. I walked to the kitchen window and stared out at the old carriage house where I kept my tools. My mother had left me this property free and clear when she died 3 years ago. It was the only thing of value I'd ever owned, and Vanessa wanted to take it away. But it was her parting shot about the kids that really got to me. I thought about Emma's brown eyes, so different from my blue ones, and Vanessa's green. Tyler had dark hair, while both Vanessa and I were blonde. I'd always assumed they took after Vanessa's side of the family. Now I wasn't so sure. I grabbed my laptop and did something I'd been avoiding for months. I Googled paternity testing Maine. The results filled my screen. Dozens of labs offering discrete DNA testing, with results in 3-5 business days. Then I remembered something. Last Christmas, Vanessa had bought 23andMe kits for the whole family. "For fun," she'd said, "to see where we come from." But when the kits arrived, she'd suddenly changed her mind and thrown them away, claiming they were a waste of money. I walked to the garage where we kept the recycling bins. Sure enough, there at the bottom of the paper recycling was a crumpled Amazon box. Inside were 4 unopened DNA testing kits. Back in the kitchen, I carefully opened 2 of the kits and read the instructions. All I needed were saliva samples from Emma and Tyler. They were both heavy sleepers, and a quick swab of the inside of their cheeks wouldn't wake them. I climbed the stairs to their rooms, my heart pounding. Emma was curled up with her stuffed elephant, breathing softly. I gently swabbed the inside of her cheek, then did the same with Tyler. 20 minutes later, I was sealing the samples in prepaid envelopes addressed to the lab. I'd paid extra for expedited results. As I walked to the mailbox, I couldn't help but smile. Vanessa thought she held all the cards, but she'd just made a crucial mistake. She'd threatened me with information I could easily verify. If those kids were mine, I'd fight her tooth and nail for custody. But if they weren't, well, that changed everything. I dropped the envelopes in the mailbox and raised the red flag. "Sweet dreams, honey," I whispered to the night air. "Tomorrow's going to be very interesting." I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Vanessa's smug smile and heard her voice. "Are they? You sure about that, Jack?" By 6 a.m., I gave up on sleep and made coffee. The divorce papers were still spread across the kitchen table like a legal minefield. I read through them more carefully this time, and what I found made my blood boil. She wasn't just asking for half the house. She wanted me to sign over my entire inheritance. The property was worth at least $400,000, and she knew it. She'd been pushing me to sell for years, claiming we needed something more modern, closer to town. Now I understood why. She wanted the money for her new life with whoever she'd been sneaking around with. I needed information, and I knew exactly where to get it. Ray Hutchins had been tending bar at Murphy's Tavern for 30 years. He knew everyone's business in our little town of Cedar Falls, and he'd been like an uncle to me since my father died when I was 12. Murphy's didn't open until 11, but Ray lived in the apartment above the bar. I walked the 3 blocks from my house, enjoying the crisp Maine morning air and trying to organize my thoughts. Ray answered his door in a bathrobe and slippers, squinting at me through wire-rimmed glasses. "Jesus, Jack, it's not even 7. What's wrong?" "Vanessa wants a divorce. She's demanding the house and threatening to take the kids." Ray's expression shifted from sleepy confusion to sharp concern. "Come on up, I'll make coffee." His apartment was small but comfortable, filled with Red Sox memorabilia and the smell of bacon. Ray had been married once, briefly, in his 20s. He'd told me the secret to happiness was good whiskey and bad women, but never at the same time. "So she finally pulled the trigger," he said, handing me a steaming mug. "Can't say I'm surprised. She's been running around town like she's already single." "What do you mean?" Ray settled into his recliner and studied my face. "You really don't know, do you, Jack? Half the town's been talking about Vanessa and Luke Merrill for months." Luke Merrill. The name hit me like a cold slap. He owned CrossFit Cedar Falls, the fancy gym that had opened last year in the old hardware store. He was one of those guys who wore expensive workout clothes everywhere and drove a Tesla with vanity plates that read Beast 1. "How long?" I asked. "Since at least last summer, maybe longer." Ray took a sip of coffee. "I heard she's been telling people you two are separated." "We're not separated. We live in the same house. I know that, and you know that, but she's been painting a different picture around town, making it sound like you're the one holding up the divorce." I felt like an idiot. While I'd been trying to save my marriage, Vanessa had been systematically destroying my reputation and setting up her exit strategy. "There's something else," Ray said quietly. "Something you're not going to like." "Tell me." "She's been bragging to her girlfriends about how she's going to take you to the cleaners. Said you're too stupid to fight back, and she'll have the house and kids before you know what hit you." The coffee tasted bitter in my mouth. "She said something last night about the kids. Implied they might not be mine." Ray's eyebrows shot up. "That's a hell of an accusation. I sent off DNA tests this morning. I should have results by Friday." "Smart move. But Jack, you need to be prepared for whatever those results show." "I know." Ray leaned forward in his chair. "No, I don't think you do. If those kids aren't yours, it changes everything. Child support, custody, even the property division. But it also means Vanessa's been lying to you for years about the most important thing in your life." I stared out Ray's window at the street below. Cedar Falls was waking up. Mrs. Patterson was walking her ancient beagle. Tom Wilson was loading his work truck. Normal people living normal lives, while mine was falling apart. "I need to know everything," I said. "Every rumor, every piece of gossip. If I'm going to fight this, I need..." ammunition. Ray grinned, and for the first time since last night, I felt a spark of hope. "Now you're talking. Let me make some calls." I spent the next hour at Ray's kitchen table while he worked his network of bartenders, waitresses, and longtime customers. By the time I left, I had a notebook full of information that painted a very different picture of my wife than the one I'd been living with. Vanessa hadn't just been cheating with Luke Merrill. She'd been systematically bad-mouthing me to anyone who would listen, claiming I was controlling, lazy, and emotionally abusive. She'd told her coworkers I was holding her back professionally. She'd told her gym friends I was jealous of her success. Most damning of all, she'd been moving money. Small amounts at first, but Ray's friend who worked at the bank had noticed regular transfers from our joint account to a personal account I didn't know existed. I walked home with a new understanding of exactly who I'd been married to. Vanessa wasn't just leaving me. She'd been planning to destroy me, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd assumed I was too passive to fight back. As I turned onto my street, I saw her BMW in the driveway. She was home earlier than usual, probably to check on whether I'd signed the papers. I found her in the kitchen, still in her work clothes, rifling through the mail. "Any decisions, Jack?" she asked without looking up. "I'm thinking about it. Don't think too long. My offer expires tomorrow night." I watched her sort through bills and junk mail, noting how she set aside anything that looked official or financial. She was already separating our lives, piece by piece. "Can I ask you something, Vanessa?" "What? Do you feel anything? Any guilt about breaking up our family?" She finally looked at me, and her expression was colder than I'd ever seen it. "Our family's been broken for years, Jack. I'm just making it official. And the kids, how do you think this is going to affect them?" Something flickered across her face. Doubt, maybe, or regret, but it was gone in an instant. "They'll be fine. Kids are resilient. Emma asked me yesterday why Mommy doesn't live here anymore. I told her you were just working late. You shouldn't lie to children." The irony was so thick, I almost laughed. "You're right. Maybe it's time we all started telling the truth." She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to figure out what I meant. But Vanessa had always underestimated me. She saw what she wanted to see, a passive husband who would roll over and play dead. "Just sign the papers, Jack. Make this easy on everyone." She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "I'm having dinner with my sister. I'll be back late." After she left, I called my sister Marion in Portland. She was a paralegal at a big law firm and one of the smartest people I knew. "I need a lawyer," I told her. "A good one." "What kind of trouble are you in?" "The kind that ends with me losing everything I care about." There was a pause. "I'll make some calls. Can you drive down here tomorrow?" "I'll be there." As I hung up the phone, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: hope. Vanessa thought she had me cornered, but the game was just getting started. I walked out to my workshop in the old carriage house and pulled out my toolbox. Tomorrow, I was going to start building a new life. But first, I had some demolition to do. Thursday morning brought the DNA test results via email. I was in my workshop, pretending to organize tools while actually staring at my phone every 30 seconds, when the notification finally appeared. My hands shook as I opened the attachment. The lab had made it simple, a clear chart showing genetic markers and percentages. At the bottom, in bold letters, was the conclusion I'd been dreading and hoping for in equal measure. Probability of paternity, 0.0%. I read it 3 times before the words sank in. Emma and Tyler weren't my biological children. 7 years of bedtime stories, scraped knees, and proud moments at school plays, all built on a lie. I sat down hard on my workbench, the phone sliding from my numb fingers. Part of me wanted to rage, to put my fist through the wall or sweep everything off my workbench. But a bigger part of me felt something unexpected: relief. If the kids weren't mine, then Vanessa's threats were empty. She couldn't use them as leverage because I had no legal obligation to them. More importantly, she'd been lying to me for years about the most fundamental aspect of our marriage. That gave me power. I picked up my phone and called Marion. "I need to move up that meeting with your lawyer friend." "What happened?" "The kids aren't mine. DNA test came back this morning." There was a long silence. "Jesus, Jack, I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry yet. This changes everything. How soon can we meet?" "I'll call David right now. Can you be here by noon?" "I'm already on my way." The drive to Portland took 2 hours, which gave me time to think. By the time I reached Marion's office building, I had the beginnings of a plan. David Kowalski was nothing like the lawyers on TV. He was short, balding, and wore a rumpled suit that had seen better days. But Marion assured me he was the best family law attorney in Maine, with a reputation for taking difficult cases and winning them. Your sister filled me in on the basics, he said, settling behind his cluttered desk. Let's start with the DNA results. I handed him the printed report. He studied it carefully, making notes on a yellow legal pad. This is solid evidence, but it's also a double-edged sword. It proves your wife committed adultery and fraud, but it also means you have no legal claim to the children. I understand that. What I want to know is how it affects the property settlement. David leaned back in his chair. In Maine, adultery can be grounds for an unequal division of marital assets. If we can prove she's been hiding money and lying about paternity, we might be able to protect your inherited property entirely. She's demanding I sign over the house. Says if I don't, she'll make sure I never see the kids. That's extortion, and it's illegal. The fact that she made that threat in writing is actually helpful. He made another note. Do you want a relationship with these children, knowing they're not biologically yours?
He texted at 2 a.m. Leave the door unlocked. You left our door unlocked for him?
Once it was
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
It was the question I'd been avoiding all morning. Emma and Tyler had been my world for 7 years. I'd taught Tyler to ride a bike and helped Emma with her math homework. They called me daddy and ran to me when they were hurt or scared, but they weren't mine. They were the products of my wife's affair, living reminders of her betrayal. I don't know, I admitted. Right now, I just want to make sure she can't use them to destroy me. David nodded. Fair enough. Here's what we're going to do. First, we file a counter-petition for divorce, citing adultery and fraud. We request DNA testing for both children. Make it official. We also request a full accounting of all marital assets, including any hidden accounts. She's been moving money. Small amounts, but regularly. We'll find it. Banks have records of everything. He leaned forward. But I want you to understand something, Jack. This is going to get ugly. Your wife clearly thought she could steamroll you, and when she realizes you're fighting back, she's going to escalate. Let her try. I'm serious. People do desperate things when their plans fall apart. You need to be prepared for her to play dirty. I thought about the woman who had threatened me in my own kitchen, who had been systematically destroying my reputation while planning to take everything I owned. She already is playing dirty. I'm just leveling the field. David smiled for the first time since I'd walked into his office. Good. We'll file the paperwork tomorrow. In the meantime, I want you to document everything, every conversation, every threat, every suspicious behavior, and don't sign anything she puts in front of you. What about the kids? Do I tell them what's happening? Not yet. Let's see how she reacts to our filing first. I drove home with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in months. Vanessa thought she held all the cards, but she was about to discover that her biggest weapon had just become mine. She was waiting in the kitchen when I got home. The unsigned divorce papers spread across the table like an accusation. Time's up, Jack. I need an answer. I poured myself a glass of water and took my time drinking it, studying her face. She looked confident, almost smug. She had no idea what was coming. I've been thinking about what you said the other night, about the kids. Her expression didn't change, but I caught a slight tightening around her eyes. What about it? You seemed pretty confident they weren't mine. That's a hell of a thing to say, unless you know something I don't. I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. Did you? Because I've been doing some math, Vanessa. Emma was born in March 2016. If I count back 9 months, that puts conception around June 2015. Remember where you were that month? The color drained from her face. June 2015 was when she'd gone to that real estate conference in Boston. She'd been gone for a week, and she'd come back different somehow, more distant. You're being ridiculous. Am I? What about Tyler, born in September 2018? That puts conception around Christmas 2017. You remember that Christmas party at your office? The one where you stayed out until 3 in the morning? She stood up abruptly, knocking over her chair. I don't have to listen to this. Actually, you do. Because I got DNA tests done, Vanessa. Both kids. Results came back this morning. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. I could see her mind racing, trying to figure out how much I knew and how much I was guessing. You had no right. I had every right. They're supposed to be my children. I pulled out my phone and showed her the email. Except they're not, are they? She stared at the screen, her face cycling through shock, fear, and finally defiance. So what? You raised them. You love them. That doesn't change just because of some test. You're right. It doesn't change how I feel about them. But it changes everything else. I stood up, suddenly feeling 10 feet tall. It changes the custody arrangement. It changes the child support. And it definitely changes the property settlement. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not signing your papers, Vanessa. I'm filing my own. Adultery, fraud, and extortion. My lawyer thinks I have a very strong case. For the first time since this whole mess started, she looked genuinely scared. Jack, we can work this out. We don't need lawyers. We already have lawyers. Mine filed the paperwork this afternoon. It was a small lie, but the effect was immediate. She sank back into her chair like she'd been punched. This is crazy. You're going to destroy our family over a stupid test? I'm not destroying anything, Vanessa. You already did that. I walked toward the door, then stopped. Oh, and you might want to call Luke Merrill. He's going to need a lawyer too. Turns out, being the biological father comes with certain financial responsibilities. I left her sitting in the kitchen and went upstairs to pack a bag. I'd be staying at Ray's place until this was over. The house suddenly felt too small for both of us, and I didn't trust myself to stay civil much longer. As I threw clothes into a duffel bag, I could hear her on the phone downstairs, her voice rising with each word. She was calling someone, probably Luke, maybe her sister. It didn't matter. The game had changed, and for the first time in years, I was holding the winning hand. Word travels fast in a small town, and by Friday morning, everyone at Murphy's Tavern knew about my situation. I'd been staying in Ray's spare room for 2 days, and the local gossip mill was working overtime. She's been telling people you abandoned her and the kids, Ray said, sliding a cup of coffee across the bar. Making herself out to be the victim. Let her talk. The truth will come out soon enough. The bell above the door chimed, and I looked up to see Luke Merrill walk in. He was wearing his usual uniform of expensive athletic wear and an attitude that suggested the world owed him something. His eyes swept the nearly empty bar until they found me. We need to talk, he said, walking over like he owned the place. Ray stepped closer, his hand moving casually toward the baseball bat he kept behind the bar. This is a private conversation, friend. It's okay, Ray. I turned to face Luke, taking my time to look him up and down. He was younger than me, probably 32 or 33, with the kind of artificially perfect physique that came from spending 3 hours a day at the gym. What can I do for you, Luke? You can stop this bullshit legal action, for starters. Which legal action would that be? His jaw tightened. Don't play dumb with me. Vanessa told me about your little DNA stunt. Ah, so you two have discussed it. That's interesting. I took a sip of coffee, enjoying the way his face was turning red. Did she mention the results? Look, whatever problems you and Vanessa have, leave me out of it. I'm afraid that's not possible. See, those DNA results show that someone else is the father of those kids. Someone who's been having an affair with my wife for years. I stood up, noting with satisfaction that I was several inches taller than him. Someone who's about to become financially responsible for 2 children. Luke's confident facade cracked. You can't prove anything, can't I? Funny thing about DNA tests, they're pretty definitive, and Maine has very clear laws about paternity and child support. I moved closer, lowering my voice. Did you really think you could screw my wife, father my kids, and walk away without consequences? Those aren't your kids, he snapped, then immediately realized his mistake. No, they're not. They're yours. Congratulations, Daddy. The color drained from his face. I never said, you just did. Ray heard it too, didn't you, Ray? Ray nodded, grinning. Clear as day. Man just admitted those kids are his. Luke looked around the bar like a trapped animal. The few other customers were all watching now, sensing drama. In a town like Cedar Falls, this would be the biggest gossip of the year. This isn't over, Luke muttered, backing toward the door. You're right, it's not. My lawyer will be in touch about setting up child support payments. Hope that Tesla's paid off, because you're about to have some new expenses. After he left, Ray let out a low whistle. That boy's in deep trouble. He brought it on himself. I finished my coffee and stood up. I need to go see the kids before this gets any worse. The drive to Emma and Tyler's school took 10 minutes, but it felt like an hour. I'd been avoiding them since the DNA results came back, not sure how to face them knowing what I now knew. They were innocent in all this, but looking at them was like staring at the evidence of my wife's betrayal. I found them on the playground during recess. Emma was on the swings, her dark hair flying behind her as she pumped her legs. Tyler was building something in the sandbox, with intense concentration. For a moment, I just watched them, remembering all the times I'd pushed Emma on those same swings or helped Tyler with his elaborate sand constructions. "Daddy!" Emma spotted me first and came running over, her face lighting up with the uncomplicated joy that only children can manage. Tyler looked up from his project and ran over too. "Are you picking us up early? Is Mommy sick?" "No, buddy. I just wanted to see you guys." I knelt down so I was at their eye level. "How was school today?" They chattered about their classes, their friends, their teachers. Normal kid stuff that made my chest tight with emotion. Whatever else was true, I'd been their father for 7 years. That had to count for something. "Daddy, why don't you live at home anymore?" Emma asked suddenly. "Mommy said you moved out, but she won't tell us why." I felt a surge of anger at Vanessa for putting me in this position. These kids deserved better than being used as weapons in their parents' war. "Sometimes grown-ups have problems they need to work out," I said carefully. "But that doesn't change how much I love you both." "Are you and Mommy getting divorced?" Tyler asked. At 5 years old, he was already too smart for his own good. "We might be, buddy, but that doesn't mean I'm going away. I'll always be here when you need me." It was a promise I wasn't sure I could keep, but looking at their worried faces, I couldn't bring myself to say anything else. Emma hugged me tight. "I don't want you to go away." "I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. The legal reality was that I had no claim to these children. Once the divorce was final, Vanessa could cut me out of their lives completely if she wanted to. The thought made me angrier than anything else she'd done. I stayed until recess was over, then watched them walk back into the school building. Emma turned and waved at me from the doorway, and I waved back, wondering if this might be one of the last normal moments we'd have together. My phone buzzed with a text from David Kowalski. "Can you come in this afternoon? We need to discuss Vanessa's response to our filing." I drove back to Portland feeling like I was heading into battle, which I supposed I was. David's office was busier than it had been on Thursday. His secretary led me back to his office, where he was waiting with a thick folder and a grim expression. "She lawyered up fast," he said without preamble. "Hired Patricia Brennan from Brennan & Associates. Is that bad?" "Brennan's good. Expensive, but good. She specializes in high-conflict divorces." He opened the folder and pulled out several documents. "They've filed a counter-response claiming you're an unfit parent who's trying to abandon his children." That's ridiculous." Of course it is. But it's also smart. They're trying to flip the narrative, make you look like the bad guy." He handed me a copy of the filing. "They're also claiming the DNA tests were obtained illegally and shouldn't be admissible." I scanned the document, my anger building with each paragraph. Vanessa was accusing me of being emotionally abusive, financially controlling, and now of trying to abandon my parental responsibilities. Can they do this? Make the DNA results inadmissible? They can try, but the tests were done on your own property, with samples from children you believe to be yours. That's legal. David leaned back in his chair. "The bigger problem is the public relations battle. She's trying to make you look like a deadbeat dad who's running away from his responsibilities." "What do? We fight fire with fire." "I've already started discovery proceedings on her finances. If she's been hiding money, we'll find it. And I want to depose Luke Merrill under oath." He basically admitted the kids were his this morning at Murphy's Tavern. David's eyebrows shot up. "Tell me everything." I recounted the conversation word for word, including Luke's slip about the kids not being mine. David took notes, occasionally asking for clarification. "This is good. If we can get him to admit paternity under oath, it strengthens our case significantly." He made another note. "But I want you to be careful, Jack. This kind of public confrontation can backfire." He came to me. "I know, but from now on, let me handle any communication with him or his lawyer." David closed the folder. "There's something else. Vanessa's asking for temporary spousal support and exclusive use of the marital home. She wants to kick me out of my own house? Your mother's house, which makes it separate property. We can fight this, but it's going to take time." He looked at me seriously. "How long can you stay at your friend's place?" "As long as I need to." "Good, because this is going to get worse before it gets better." As I drove back to Cedar Falls, I thought about what David had said. Vanessa was trying to control the narrative, painting herself as the wronged wife and me as the villain. In a small town, perception could be as important as legal facts. But she'd made a mistake by hiring an expensive Portland lawyer. People in Cedar Falls didn't like outsiders, especially fancy ones who charged more per hour than most locals made in a week. It was time to start telling my side of the story. Saturday morning brought the kind of crisp October weather that made Maine famous. I was helping Ray prep the bar for the weekend rush when my phone rang. The caller ID showed my sister's number. "Jack, you need to see the Portland Herald," Marion said without preamble. "Page 3. What about it?" "Just get a copy, now." The nearest newsstand was at Peterson's General Store, 2 blocks from the bar. I jogged over, my mind racing through possibilities. When I found the newspaper and flipped to page 3, my blood turned to ice. The headline read, "Local man abandons family, claims children aren't his." Below it was a photo of me taken from my company website, next to a more recent picture of Vanessa looking tearful and vulnerable. The article was a masterpiece of manipulation. It portrayed Vanessa as a devoted mother and wife whose husband had suddenly turned violent and paranoid, demanding DNA tests and threatening to abandon his children. It quoted her extensively, describing how I'd changed and become controlling and abusive. There was no mention of her affair with Luke Merrill, no mention of the financial manipulation or the threats she'd made, just the story of a poor woman whose husband had lost his mind and was trying to escape his responsibilities. The worst part was the quote at